Welcome to our summit, Secrets to Creating Optimum Health. Boost your vitality so that you can hike, swim, travel, and play at any age. I'm your host, Yolie, and I celebrate you for joining us and investing time to create your optimum health. Today, I would like to welcome Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. She received her doctorate in exercise physiology and nutrition from the University of Miami. She is currently a professor of nutrition at Miami-Dade College and a full-time content creator on YouTube, Instagram, and other platforms. For decades, Dr. Zaldivar taught other health professionals and college students alike at the University of Miami and the American College of Sports Medicine. So welcome once again, Dr. Zaldivar. Really glad to have you today and give us your expertise.
Thank you so much, Yolie. Thank you for thinking of me.
Oh, thank you. So Dr. Zaldivar, what led you to focus on physiology and nutrition?
So I've always struggled with my weight growing up. So that was the first interest. And eventually, as I was getting ready to go to college, I started struggling with acne on top of that. So that was another layer of something that I needed, that I couldn't find an answer for, and that I would see dermatologist after dermatologist and dietitian after dietitian, and nothing would work. And so I've struggled a lot from that area, and that was the major reason why I decided to pursue an education in nutrition and dietetics, and eventually exercise physiology, because it was like within the same field.
Okay. And then, so you use your experience and to help others having some similar issues?
Yeah. So, I mean, I see clients, I teach at Miami-Dade College, and I've taught at the University of Miami, the American College of Sports Medicine, DeVry University. So I've done this in so many different ways, and now I choose to focus a lot more with YouTube and content creation, because I have a much wider impact. You can reach millions of people, like there's no limit, and you can have a much bigger impact with the work that you're doing. So yeah, that's my main focus. I still, I'm still teaching like part-time, a little bit on the side. I don't know for how long I can justify, still teaching there, but for maybe this semester, I'm still there.
Oh, well, you're talking to a former teacher.
Yeah, how it is, as much as we love it, it just, at some point, it's financially irresponsible to stay doing that, because just there's so many more opportunities with the internet and with YouTube and Instagram. You literally could become a multimillionaire, and not only the money, but reach millions of people that I could never reach in my lifetime teaching one class after another. So it just makes no sense for me to stay there. So you know how it is.
Yes, you can get so much out, especially now that so many of us are online.
Yeah.
So what do you find is the most common challenge you see in the area of exercise and physiology and nutrition when you meet with your clients?
What do I work with them? How do I work with them, you mean?
Like what are the common, like when folks seek you out?
Their common complaints.
Right.
So a lot of my content on YouTube is focused on carnivore diets and weight loss and things, and mindset and discipline, because I personally struggled with those areas in binge eating, emotional eating, addictive type behavior, sugar addiction. And so it seems that a lot of my clients, because they see themselves in my struggle, they tend to reach out to me. So it's a very similar kind of people that I see, just struggling to lose weight, and probably also having health issues, because most of the time by the time people reach out to me, they've already tried everything else and it didn't work, because most people don't want to hear like, just eat meat. They're like, but what about fiber? What about all those things? We have all of these preconceived ideas of what a healthy diet is. And I mean, I was the most brainwashed, given that I went through traditional academia, right? So I know exactly how hard it is to wrap your head around the fact that humans have only eaten meat for 99.99% of their existence as a species here on Earth. And for that reason, it is the optimal human diet. But even knowing that, it's still hard to wrap your head around it, because, I've been traditionally trained. My bachelor's and my master's were both in nutrition and dietetics. My doctorate, even though it was in exercise physiology, my minor or supporting field was in nutrition. So it was all the same, just a lot of brainwashing and cherry picked data where they only focus on the studies that are, for the most part, sponsored by the food companies that can make tons and tons of profit by just selling you cheap grains and carbohydrate rich foods and just changing the flavors, right? And those are very addictive foods. So they're selling, obviously, because most people are addicted to food. Even if somebody doesn't have a weight problem, they might have a health issue and they still struggle, knowing that, they could target it with food, but they can't because of the addiction. So most of those studies are funded by those food companies, and the food companies work very closely with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is the largest organizing body of nutritionists and dietitians in the world. And they put out the academic programs, they influence all of the traditional academic or academic programs in all of the world. And so I grew up in Lebanon and I got my education in Lebanon, and it was like copy paste from like American universities, and we were following that, right?
Right.
It's very important, like in Lebanon, and I'm assuming other countries as well, it's very important that they get credentialed so that you can transfer, because a lot of us eventually emigrate and you want to be able to transfer your credits. So yeah, that was now I realize that we were manipulated, our instructors were manipulated, and they still are. Our deans, chairpersons, they're all kind of manipulated by the food companies, because where the money is, this is what drives attention and this is what funds the research. And then you have 99% of nutrition studies kind of repeating the same thing, just hypothesizing that, carbs are good and fat is bad. And so let's just try to prove it over and over and over again. And then you end up with a totality of evidence saying one thing, and it's only because it's the same biases that everybody has, and they just try to keep confirming their biases. And nobody stops for a second and tries to think, how about we study our ancestral diet? How about we fund a study that puts people on the diet that they ate for 99.999% of their existence as species, which is meat, and compare that to what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is saying is the healthy diet? Why don't we do that? But there's not a lot of money in funding those studies, because you can't make as much money selling meat, because it's not addictive as you can selling everything else.
Right. And that makes it really hard for those of us who are not as informed. I mean, you go to the store and things are packaged, so they're processed, but they're labeled as healthy. So we gravitate to the baked chips, right?
Yeah, you're right. Anything that comes out of a package is not food. It's a science fair project.
Right.
That's it. You shouldn't have an ingredient list on food. It should be just meat or salmon, eggs, maybe bacon. Even if you can tolerate dairy, if you're not sensitive, you can do dairy, shrimp, seafood, all kinds of seafood, all kinds of fish, pork, chicken. Those are single ingredient foods that we've ate for millions of years. But the ideal form would be red meat, whether that's in the form of ground beef or ribeye or roast beef, whichever way you like to prepare it. It's all the same.
But of course, what we hear is that's high caloric content, that's high fat content, that's artery clogging. So
yeah, that's what people think, right? And that's what the American Heart Association thinks. That's what most dietitians believe, and they already are biased to think that way. And so when they're hypothesizing, when you want to start a study, you should start out with a hypothesis. What are you trying to prove? Because based on that hypothesis, you're going to design the study, right? In an ideal situation, you're supposed to be able to disprove that hypothesis, but that's not how science works. And I've been in countless studies, been a part of and led my own study for my dissertation. And trust me, I've never seen ever in my experience a scientist who has tried to do that, at least in nutrition in my field, where they try to go really hard to disproving their hypothesis. They're just so happy to have some dollars coming into their lab to keep them afloat, to have a job, because it's insanely difficult to get funded. Well, first, it's insanely difficult to get a job as a professor. Only 5% of PhDs end up with a position as an assistant professor, which is an entry-level position at a university. 5% only.
Wow.
Within the first 5 years. So that's, it's like 95%, they can't find a job, they do something else, right? And then once you actually do get that job, a lot of universities will not pay your full salary. They'll pay part of it, and then they expect you to secure the rest of it in form of grants. So you have to write grant proposals. Where are you going to submit those grant proposals? Where the money is. Where is the money? Pharmaceutical companies and food companies. Food companies, that means processed, packaged, high carb foods, addictive foods. And so not only that, another major reason to keep getting funded is that you wouldn't even get promoted. So you start off as an assistant professor, and then you get promoted as an associate professor, and then you get promoted into full professorship, right? And usually it takes like 7 to 8 years between the levels, but you might not ever get there if you're not getting your own grants, if you're not pulling money into or grabbing money and, getting money into the university system. So everybody's dying to get any form of funding, and it's hard enough to get regular funds available, even from the food companies or the pharmaceutical companies, like 90% rejection rate.
Wow.
So if you're lucky enough to eventually get one, do you think you're going to jeopardize it? Do you think you're really going to go hard to try and disprove the hypothesis? Right. Because then once the study is over, now you need more grant money to keep your job. Right. And that's how money really drives the narrative. And the science, when people say the science, there's no such thing as nutrition science, because it's all funded from pretty much one source. And it's unfortunate that we don't get a complete picture of the findings, but then also, we're also bombarded with this diet, that diet. And I personally believe to follow any diet, it's just a way of eating. So, but of all those diets that are out there, what would be the closest to what you're proposing? Because I know there's of all of like the popular diets, what would be the closest? I would say keto would be the closest. But the problem with keto is that it still contains plant foods. And the problem with plant foods is that they defend themselves. Plants don't want to be eaten, right? And so they have chemicals in them that are called self-defense chemicals or anti-nutrients. The plants, the reason they have evolved along with us and survived millions of years along with us and other animals and other insects, the plants that have been able to evolve are the ones that have the most effective defense strategies. And how does a plant defend itself? It can't run away from you, right? It can't attack you. It's immobile. And for that reason, over millions of years, the plants that have survived and still are around us are the ones that were the most effective at producing self-defense chemicals and plant self-defense molecules. And so they've become master chemists, where they create a ton of chemicals that are like guided missiles that go into your body, and different ones have different effects. But things like, I've seen psoriasis reversed in my student. I've seen my client reversed her menopause after not having had a period for a while. She was 55. Like literal reversal of aging just because of the carnivore diet. Acne resolves, ulcerative colitis, IBS. I mean, vitiligo, everything. Parkinson's disease reversal. I mean, those are things that we're told are degenerative and we can't really reverse them. Diabetes, those are the easy ones. Right. So
Uh,
yeah, that's the problem with keto. The keto is the closest, but unfortunately it's so heavy in plant foods that it keeps you in that inflamed state. So you're constantly puffy and you're constantly achy and sore.
mhm.
You've got brain fog, you might have multiple sclerosis, you might have rheumatoid arthritis, depending on what system in your body is genetically prone
Mhm.
or vulnerable to those plant defense chemicals. So for some people, their integumentary system or their skin is the most
Right.
genetically prone, right? So then they have eczema when they're eating plants. For others, it might be their
Okay.
skeletal system. And so their bones, they could develop, rheumatoid arthritis when they eat plants. So it depends on your genetics, but
Mhm.
almost everybody does suffer major consequences of eating plants because it's literally a slow form of poison. That's what it is. I mean, so the vast majority of nutritionists and the mainstream narrative in nutrition is that those chemicals that I'm talking about are called antioxidants. They're
Mhm.
called good for you. You
Mhm.
want to consume as many antioxidants as possible,
Right.
but like just go do a Google search and
Mhm.
just get the definition of that antioxidant. Like then the first sentence will be, it's a form of plant cell defense chemical.
Oh,
Caffeine is a natural insecticide.
really?
Yes, that's the
Oh,
whole purpose of caffeine, so that the coffee bean plant protects itself from consumption. And this is why
oh.
it suppresses your appetite, so that you can starve yourself to death, so that over a long enough period of time, your species dies off and the coffee bean plant doesn't have as many predators. And so it outnumbers you and survival of the fittest.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, that works on smaller animals and insects,
Uh-huh.
but because we're large, we're not gonna start the dose of caffeine is not gonna have as much of a powerful effect on us as smaller animals, but
Mhm.
we're still getting damaging effects from consuming that plant toxin.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about the plants.
Yeah, yeah,
I want to switch over a little bit. I caught something you did on YouTube recently where you were talking about the NAD plus and it's important to our cellular energy. And I
yeah.
know I recently, I work a lot with natural oils, and the group I work with just recently came up with studies. So it's now on my radar. So when I
Mhm.
heard you talk about it, I thought, oh, if you could explain a little bit about the NAD plus and how it
Yeah.
changes and why we need it as we age.
Yes, really exciting stuff. So NAD plus is an area of extreme interest in anti-aging research. And it seems that when you reverse the gradual decline of NAD plus in your cells, you literally can reverse the aging process. It seems to be as the main cause of the aging process, which then
Right.
influences all of the aging associated diseases,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
from like weight gain associated with age, and from muscle loss associated with age, from bone loss. All those things are influenced by how much NAD plus you have in your cells. It comes from a form of vitamin B3 actually, which is super rich in red meat. And
Mm-hmm.
so the richest sources of NAD plus are actually animal foods. And that's another reason why we want to eat more animal foods, because
Mm-hmm.
it boosts your NAD plus levels.
Okay.
So what they have been able to develop is supplements of NMN, which is
Right.
a precursor to NAD plus.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take NMN, it boosts NAD plus levels in your cells, and that literally reverses the aging process. If you go to YouTube and you look up Dr. David Sinclair, he's a Harvard researcher, expert on anti-aging, worldwide, known worldwide for his
Yeah.
research.
I keep hearing his name.
Very
It's
well known.
coming up, right.
Yeah. He was able to reverse aging in pairs of rodents. I think they were mice. One of them, they were both
Good.
born on the
Right.
same day. Did you see
Mhm.
that? Right?
I read about it.
It's so
Yeah.
cool. They put them on treadmills designed specifically for mice. One of them is the control, so it's not given anything. The other one is given NMN. And you can literally see how the one that was taking the NMN they reversed the gray hair, but not only physical appearance reversed, but even performance and physical fitness improved. And so when they put him on a treadmill, the one that took the NMN kept running and running to the point where the research assistants thought that the treadmill broke, and it didn't break. It was really designed to run for a certain amount of time because no mouse was able to go longer than that. The one that took the NMN outran the treadmill.
Oh, wow.
Whereas the other one was getting older naturally and just getting slower, and
right, the normal process.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you see that, it's mind-blowing.
Well, I know. I mean, I was astounded because I recently got a lot of information that even as early as 2025, we start losing those things and we start aging. I thought, wow, so I've been aging that long.
Yeah.
So now that, we've aged a bit, how do we get that back into our system? You mentioned the mice that got that and how well that mouse did. How do we get that in?
So there are a lot of people who actually take supplements of NMN. The only thing I would pay attention to is that do your research on where you're sourcing the NMN, because it seems that if they stay on the shelves for too long, actually not too long, like 2 months even, not that long, they lose potency quickly.
Yes.
So you want to get fresh NMN. I would look up, try to do research where Dr. David Sinclair gets his source from. Where does he get the NMN from? Because that's the most effective one. But yeah, you can supplement with NMN. There are additional things that boost NAD+, such as physical fitness, running, caloric restriction, creating a calorie deficit, boost NMN. Yeah, fasting.
Yeah, I was going to ask, intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting, yes. So there's a bunch of things that you can do naturally that's going to boost your
help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I'm most excited about, I guess I'm most excited about all of them.
Well, I'm super excited about that because I've been working on putting that back into my system. And I've noticed the mental clarity has just been through the roof. Where I usually would be interrupted, I lose my train of thought.
Yes.
It's not happening. I'm interrupted. And just like when I was much younger, I'm able to jump back into that conversation.
Yeah.
And then you're right about staying on the shelf. Because I think if it's in a powder form, it's best because you activate it with water versus the liquid ones that just sit there. Is that true?
Say that again.
So you can get it in liquid form. And those are the ones that if they sit around too long, they lose their...
I don't know if it's because if it's in liquid or not. I'm not sure if that's the thing. I think it's more about being fresh, just getting ones that haven't been stored for too long. Yeah.
Okay. So then going to Dr. Sinclair, folks, can find more information.
Yeah, I'll probably do a video on that just to try and help, because I got so many comments and questions when I published that video that you're referencing. It just came out a couple of days ago. Right. Everybody wants to know what is the brand. So I guess I should film that and just give you all of the, where I believe those are like higher quality.
Well, you know what it's like? You never see green cars, but the minute you want a green car, you see all the green cars. Well, I just learned about it. So now I'm seeing it everywhere. And I'm wanting to learn more and more.
It's powerful. It's absolutely powerful for sure, to see its effects. And I mean, that's just one of the things we can do for anti-aging. There are like a ton of other things that you can also do. And that's another passion of mine, having people understand that aging shouldn't be this natural thing that we just is inevitable, that we're all going to die. There's a lot of research showing we have a lot more control over the aging process. I mean, in mice, it's done, like we reverse the aging process. We can do that. But there are even human trials being done. Like, for example, the NMN we're talking about, I don't know if it's one of the studies in that video that I'm telling you about that you watched, references researchers who are using the gel. They've developed a gel that has NMN in it, and you put it on you and it boosts hyaluronic acid, which is like the number one thing you want to have glowy, plump skin that's useful. Because it increases water retention by up to 1,000 times its weight.
I've heard of that,
which is insane, right? And so they're working on it. They're using it on humans. There's genetic therapies, telomerase, that are intended to increase the length of, to increase the concentration of telomerase. which I don't know if you want to get into that, but that's like a major cause of aging. There are injections like clotho injections. I've done an interview, if you go to my YouTube channel, with the CEO of this biotech company that has all those treatments. Her name is Liz Parrish, where we talk about all those things. So I highly urge you to check it out. And everybody who's watching, you, if you're interested in this topic, there's so many things that have been developed. And she, the CEO, Liz Parrish, she took the treatments. The woman is like in her 50s. She looks like she's in her early 30s. And she's white skinned. You know, when you're super white, you tend to develop wrinkles quicker. I mean, it's insane how amazing she looks. And, you know, and she had to fly to a different country because it's like the FDA is still very slow to approve those treatments, which is insane because there was a pandemic and they approved an experimental drug like that. But with the aging process where people are literally dying every day from aging, why isn't there an urgency to approve those? There are a lot of people that's like either that or they're just going to die tomorrow or the next month.
And that's the whole purpose, you know, of the summit. It's because I'm seeing, I mean, I look around my environment and I see folks, you know, aging.
Yeah.
But they're not healthy. I mean, I'm really blessed. My father is 94 years old and I scolded him because he climbed the roof again the other day to get a fruit that he likes. But my dad has a lot of habits from lifetime habits that have helped him be mobile at 94. And my goal is, you know, be just like dad. But so the purpose of the summit is to bring to folks ways that they can live longer, but healthier, because to see folks, you know, sitting on wheelchairs and what have you. And I know accidents happen, things happen in life, but there's so much that we can do. I mean, my goal is, you know, my daughter says she can hardly wait till I apply for the handicap, there's the placard. And I said, my goal is to never have to apply for that placard. You know?
So you said your daughter's goal is to apply for that?
So for me to apply for it. So she can park closer.
Oh, how funny. I see what you mean.
And And I said, no, well, my goal is to never need that blue placard. But, and then, Britta, I want to touch also metabolic health. I know that also, it changes, you know, body changes because of metabolic system isn't working as well. So what can we do to also help our metabolism, which starts going, you know, this way?
Well, I published a video not too long ago where I reported on a study that had just come out just a few months ago, how they were able to prove that your metabolism actually doesn't slow down up from your 20s up until your 60s. Which was insane because we all used to think like, you lose a certain percentage of your metabolism starts to slow down as you age, and it turns out that it really doesn't. But most Americans and most people who are eating a diet that is like similar to the standard American diet eventually develop metabolic disease or metabolic abnormalities. Mainly is when they start developing, you know, slow mitochondria, or they lose the concentration of mitochondria you're supposed to have. And, you know, everything comes from that, you know, blood sugar goes up, blood pressure goes up, you start gaining weight. All of that, like that metabolic syndrome cluster of symptoms that often happen together, they're so prevalent. And the number one thing would be carbohydrates. That's what leads to all of these issues. And second of all would be a sedentary life. So that means that all you have to do is cut out the carbs and start moving your body more and more and more and more intensely over time. Not just about walking. It's great. If that's the only thing you can do, that's phenomenal. Just start moving. But people get complacent so quickly. So the goal should be to go from walking to jogging, from jogging to running, from running to sprinting. You have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because it's almost a universal principle in life. It's like you're either pushing forward or you're going backwards. People think that if I'm not progressing in an area, then I'm just staying put. And that's just not true. you're actually regressing with the passage of time, right? You have this, it's kind of like some metal item that you leave out. It doesn't just stay in its state, right? It rusts over time. Same thing happens to us, right? The aging process takes hold. And so you have to combat that by going harder and harder and harder with your workouts, and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner with your food, and go back to eating our species specific diet, which is a carnivore diet.
So then we can continue our metabolic health.
Yeah, you can literally reverse it. I mean, I see it every day. It's easy. That's of course not what most doctors that are trained classically are going to tell you, right? Because they don't have time to do the research. They're busy seeing patients 24/7. And then when they want to renew their license, get their continuing education credits, most of the time they're taking the easy continuing education credits, which guess who is volunteering to give you those easy options to get continuing education credits? The pharmaceutical companies, the food companies.
Right. So doctors,
if you just flip over a JAMA, a Journal of the American Medical Association. So my sister-in-law is a medical doctor, and whenever we visit her in North Carolina, she'll have like some of those journals or lying around, and I have a blast. I flip through them, and it's like literally every other page is like a full spread of some drug. And if it's not that, it's an article bashing any form of treatment that would not require you to take the drug, right? So it's like alternative medicine. They love to hate on that, you know?
So Dr. Zaldivar, if our audience wanted to connect with you if they have further questions or want to look more into this, where can they connect with you?
Sure. So it's very easy to find me. I think you can see my name on the screen, Dr. Sarah Zaldivar, Sarah with an H. So my YouTube channel is my name, Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. I'm on Instagram at dr.sarah.zaldivar. I'm on Facebook, Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. I would say YouTube and Instagram are the two, and Facebook, because whatever I post on Instagram goes to Facebook automatically. So I would say those are the three places where I'm most updated, but especially YouTube. And then I do have, you know, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, the TikTok, the Pinterest, but it's too much to keep up with everything. So for now, I've neglected them for a while, but eventually, once I have help and I can hire people, then, you know, we can populate those as well.
And then we'll put those links below so our audience can also link to them. And would you share with our audience what you have for them, your free gift?
Yes, so I have an online 1-hour course on the carnivore diet where it's a bunch of quick slides where I just give you the little, the gist of the whole topic of a carnivore diet and why it is so important, why it is what humans should be eating. It is our species-specific diet. I forgot to mention my website, drsarahzaldivar.com.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Zaldivar. Very interesting. You've given us a lot of information, and I want to thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much, Yolie. Thank you, everybody, for watching.